Go on then, Peter. Let's talk about Oscar Piastri.
Yeah.
Because many people have said that at this juncture, given his poor form over the past 4 races, that it's almost disingenuous to argue that he hasn't been affected by the pressurised circumstance that is going for his maiden win in the drivers. Is Oscar Piastri now, because of aforementioned form, out of the Drivers' Championship, or do you think he can still turn around that 24-point deficit to his teammate Lando Norris?
Championship, I mean, the race, the Brazilian race, from Oscar's point of view, was kind of a microcosm of the way the championship's going, isn't it? At one moment he was a bit nearer to Lando. He was never really going to put him under pressure, but after that first corner shunt at the restart, he was up there in P2 and pushing, behind Lando, but then it all just fell away. In this case, with the penalty and bit of car damage and so forth, a bit like the championship itself. So yeah, I would say it is over, to be honest. I can't see, unless Lando has a problem, power unit, oil leak, whatever, I can't imagine he's going to lose it now. And it's going to be Oscar actually defending P2 in the championship from Max Verstappen, if Max has 3 good closing races. But Lando just has to cruise it now to win the title. And he'd be happy to finish second to Oscar if necessary in one of these upcoming races, just to consolidate. And no big deal for him. Why not? So yeah, it's been a disappointing year, and when you mention this recent run, one has to think back to Mark Webber's comment after Baku when he said, "Oh well, he's human. Everybody makes mistakes. It's a one-off race." Well, guess what? It wasn't a one-off race. It was the beginning of a trend which has never really got any better, and that's something that it's very unusual to have seen that. Quite often you see that with a number 2. I mean, a Perez ebbs and flows when he's alongside Max, has a couple of wins and then sinks without trace, and then comes back towards the end of the year when it's contract signing time or something like that. But with it's very unusual to see somebody as dominant as Oscar was and as quick as Oscar was, just going off the boil like this. And he's never done it at any stage of his career, as far as I can see. He's very resilient to all these sorts of things. In terms of his emotions, he's pretty steady and pretty calm. But I think he was unjustly penalised yesterday. I really do. I mean, you can look at it from a point of view of the first corner incident and say, it was a racist thing, and why should a guy get a penalty for going for a gap? And isn't that what racing's all about? Isn't that what Ayrton Senna always said? There's a gap, I'm going to go for it. And why should we have rules that penalise a driver? And I think, we're all probably divided about that. On the one side, there's the stewards and the FIA and the people that fuel them. And on the other side, there's the rest of us that like motor racing. But as I say in my video last night, to me, that incident was not confined to what we see on all those replays going into the first corner. That incident began as they were coming up the hill before the pit straight, before the long straight leading downhill into turn 1. And it happened behind Lando Norris, who once the safety car's gone in, he's now in control of the race. And he's going as slowly as he possibly can, just to sort of make sure everybody's nervous about what he's going to do next. And it's interesting because if you look at it, Antonelli at one moment accelerates quite hard, almost as if he's anticipating the moment when Lando's going to do it. And then he brakes. And Lando, I don't know whether he saw that in his mirrors or he's just feeling it instinctively. But at the millisecond that Antonelli does that, Lando's off and floors the throttle. And he's away. And Lando did that absolutely perfectly. Just brilliant restart from Lando Norris, I thought. Antonelli, a complete mess as far as I could see, because not only did he do that, but he was in third gear and not second.
Tough.
And he said afterwards, and I'm still trying to work this out, he said afterwards, I had too much wheel spin at the restart. Now, I thought, well, maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe he felt that the car was going to wheel spin a lot. And to avoid that, he went into third gear. He went up the hill in third gear and started in third rather than second to avoid the wheel spin. But my question is, how did he know that he was going to have too much wheel spin? Because before the restart, how would he know that? You can't judge that just by coming out of the slow corners and doing a bit of a burnout or whatever he was doing. And I've got wheel spin there. I better start in third. I can't imagine it was that. So why did he do that? And then he was very slow when he accelerated, because he was in third, Lando's off, Oscar and Charles and everybody behind him, Hadjar and all those guys, they're all in second, as is George, of course. And they're all immediately going 8, 9, 10 kilometers an hour quicker than Antonelli. And that exponentially becomes larger as they go towards the start finish line, the safety car line. By the time they get there, it's like 10 kilometers an hour difference between Antonelli and everybody around him.
Yeah.
And what's that all about? All because he's in third gear. I don't get it. Nobody mentions that. The stewards presumably didn't even look at that. I don't know why. And all of a sudden you've got Piastri, who's going really quickly. The only place he's got to go is down by the pit wall, which is absolutely filthy. You can see all the stuff coming up, all on the left front tyre. And as he goes in, obviously he makes allowance for it. But even then it locks up the inside front. And he gets the penalty for that, basically, because Antonelli has caused such a massive speed differential for everyone around him. And he says quite glibly, oh, well, 3 into 2 doesn't go. Well, it's only 3 into 2 because you made a terrible start.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be looked at, because I'm shocked that the stewards didn't look at that in more detail.
I think the stewards, as per usual, got confused with a couple of different things. In the first instance, trying to follow the rules and regs to the letter of the law, and I think they're always subject to interpretation. And then in the second instance, they got there was misdirection. They got confused seeing plumes of smoke coming from Oscar Piastri's car. Therefore, that must mean, Peter, that he didn't have the car under his control. And I just think there are shades of grey in there. And again, the community's come out roundly and said that penalty was far too harsh for Oscar, if necessary.
Well, he shouldn't have got a penalty at all. If anybody should have got a penalty, it should have been Antonelli for causing that whole thing. He was the guy that effectively caused an avoidable accident by being so slow and in the wrong gear, as far as I can see. I'm happy to be corrected if there's a reason why he was in third gear. I thought, well, maybe he lost second. Maybe he couldn't get second. But then guess what? On that racing lap, he's down to second gear for sector 2. So actually, when everybody else is in third, interestingly enough, and George is in second, so it's not a Mercedes thing.
Yeah. And even with that being said, Peter, surely Oscar Piastri sufficiently alongside Kimi Antonelli going into turn 1 to have deserved himself some racing room, though. If we're leveraging,
absolutely. I mean, as soon as Antonelli could sense, which would have been instantaneously, that he was slow and everybody else around him was much quicker, and there's a big speed differential going on. As soon as a driver you sense that, and you've got a narrowing entry to a corner coming up, you just stay absolutely where you are, because you know there are going to be people on your left and your right. That's a restart. You know that. So all you can do is just go in on a constant radius thing and leave everybody room. Otherwise, there's going to be contact. That's just normal racing. There's nothing unusual there. You make a slow start, you just sort of sink in the cockpit and you just wait for everybody to settle around you. You don't then shut the door, assuming there's nobody there.
Yeah, cars don't just disappear into space.
I mean, and Oscar obviously ran wide. There's no doubt about that. But, why? Because he was going for a gap that should have been larger because of Antonelli making such a slow start. Yeah. I mean, I guess what you say is correct. The stewards probably may well have looked at all that and said, oh, well, there's no rule against being in fifth gear if you want at a restart and being really slow if you want. Well, my reaction to that is, well, if there isn't, there should be a rule, because that's unnecessarily dangerous speed differential at a restart when the field is bunched. It shouldn't happen. I mean, the difference in speed was much greater than you'd ever get in DRS.